You guys, I can't keep this quiet anymore. For years, I've watched my cousins live under a shadow. But what just happened in Nebraska has changed everything. Jana is finally a mother. Yes, the miracle baby we've all been praying for is officially here. But the story behind this birth, it's not what the family is telling you. I just got off a call that left me shaking. While the world sees beautiful nursery photos, there's a massive storm brewing back in Arkansas. Why was Jim Bob missing from the hospital? Why is Jana refusing to take his calls? And what did Jill find out that has the entire family in a state of war? Today, I'm breaking my silence. I'm taking you inside the private hospital room, showing you the leaked messages and revealing the real reason Jana fled to Nebraska to protect her child. This isn't just a birth announcement, it's the ultimate breaking free movement. Stay with me because for the next hour, I'm exposing every secret they tried to bury. You won't believe what's coming next. Let's start at the beginning, the moment the world didn't see. For 35 years, Jana was the glue. She was the one who cooked the meals, raised the babies that weren't hers, and smiled for the cameras while her own dreams were tucked away in a dusty corner of that big house in Tontatown. But something snapped. I remember a conversation we had months before she left, and I could hear it in her voice. The Cinderella Duggar persona was dying, and a woman who wanted her own life was finally waking up. The departure wasn't a grand announcement. There was no family meeting, no tearful goodbyes at the gate. It was a calculated, silent escape. Imagine living in a home where your every move is monitored, where your mail is screened, and where your worth is measured by your obedience to one man. Jana knew that if she told Jim Bob she was moving to Nebraska for good, he would find a way to guilt trip her into staying. He'd tell her the family needed her. He'd tell her she was abandoning her ministry. So she did the only thing she could do. She packed her life into a few suitcases under the cover of a routine visit to the Wissmanns. I was told that the night she drove out of that driveway, she didn't look back in the rearview mirror once. Not once. She wasn't just driving toward Stephen, she was driving toward herself. The shockwave that hit the compound the next morning was unlike anything I've ever heard. When Jim Bob realized that Jana's visit had no end date, the phone started ringing off the hook. I received texts from family members who were in a state of absolute panic. The golden daughter had left the fortress. But here's the part that really stings. It wasn't just about her moving, it was about the secret she was carrying. Jana knew she was pregnant. She knew that if she stayed in Arkansas, her pregnancy would become another Duggar production. Her child would be raised under the same stifling rules that she struggled with for decades. She chose Nebraska because in Nebraska, she could be a person, not a brand. She chose Stephen because he saw her as a partner, not a servant. In this first segment, I want you to understand the weight of that decision. To leave everything you've ever known, your siblings, your mother, your home, is terrifying. But staying was a death sentence for her soul. Jim Bob's reaction, it wasn't one of a concerned father. It was the reaction of a CEO who just lost his best employee. The letters, the frantic voicemails, the demands for her to return, it was all about control. But Jana was gone. For the first time in Duggar history, the eldest daughter had successfully staged a coup. She was free, she was pregnant, and she was done playing by the rules of the compound. This was the silent revolution that set the stage for the miracle we are celebrating today. But as we all know, when you defy Jim Bob Duggar, there is always a price to pay. And the price for Jana's freedom. It started with a total family blackout that would last for the next 9 months. For years, Jana was the architect of everyone else's happiness. If a wall needed painting at the big house, Jana did it. If a garden needed planting, Jana was there. But in Nebraska, for the first time, she wasn't building a set for a reality show. She was building a sanctuary for her own soul. When she and Stephen first bought that fixer-upper in Lincoln for $275,000, people questioned it. Why move to a ranch-style house in Nebraska? But I saw the before and after videos, and I didn't just see new floors and white cabinets. I saw a woman finally choosing her own aesthetic. No more dark, heavy wood or cramped quarters with 18 other people. She chose gold finishes, marble backsplashes, and high ceilings that actually let the light in. I remember talking to her right after they finished the kitchen. She told me, Amy, for the first time, I don't feel like I'm on a schedule. In Arkansas, every minute was accounted for. In Nebraska, she spent her mornings insulating the garage and fixing fences with Stephen. They were a team. Stephen didn't look at her as a Duggar star. He looked at her as his partner. Seeing them work together, measuring wood and laughing when they got it wrong, it was the most real I've ever seen her. But the sanctuary wasn't just about the house, it was about the protection it provided during her pregnancy. Since August 2025, when she officially announced they were expecting, that house became a fortress of peace. Jana told me how much she loved feeling those tiny kicks while sitting in her newly renovated living room. Surrounded by her houseplants that were finally thriving, she called herself in awe of the journey. And let's talk about the nursery, the room that really signifies her breaking free. She didn't just throw some old hand-me-down crib in there. She designed a modern, serene space for her little boy. Every coat of paint on those walls was a declaration of independence. She was preparing for a son who would grow up knowing his mother was strong enough to leave a legacy of control and start a legacy of love. As January 2026 approached, the anticipation, as Jana put it, was building. But while the house was ready, the family storm was just beginning. You see, a sanctuary is only a sanctuary if you can keep the wolves at the gate. And as Jana's due date drew closer, the pressure from Arkansas to come home for the birth became almost unbearable. But Jana stayed firm. She had her house, she had her husband, and she had her peace. She wasn't going back to the compound, not for the birth, and maybe not ever. If there's one thing you need to understand about the Duggar family, it's that privacy doesn't exist. For decades, every pregnancy announcement, every ultrasound, and every gender reveal was a choreographed event, sold to networks, splashed across magazine covers, and used to maintain the brand. But when Jana found out she was finally carrying her miracle baby, she made a choice that shook the very foundation of Tanta Town. She chose silence. For 9 long months, Jana pulled off the impossible. She lived her life in Nebraska almost like a ghost to the public eye. Do you have any idea how hard it is to hide a pregnancy when millions of people are scrutinizing your every photo? She stopped posting full-length pictures. She wore oversized sweaters. She strategically placed pillows or shopping bags in front of her bump. But it wasn't just about hiding it from the fans. It was about hiding the process from her father. Jim Bob wanted the exclusive. He wanted the announcement on his terms. But Jana, with Stephen by her side, built a wall that even the most persistent paparazzi couldn't scale. I talked to her during her second trimester, and I could hear the peace in her voice. She told me, Amy, for the first time, this baby belongs to me and Steven. Not to a TV show, not to a family business, just us. This 9-month silence was Jana's ultimate act of protection. She didn't want the stress of the Arkansas drama affecting her child. She didn't want Michelle flying in with a camera crew or Jim Bob calling her every day to discuss marketing opportunities. By staying silent, she reclaimed her narrative. She attended her prenatal appointments in Lincoln as Jana Wissmann, just another expectant mother, not the Cinderella of a reality empire. But don't think for a second that the silence was easy. Behind the scenes, the pressure was immense. There were leaked texts, frantic emails from Arkansas asking why she wasn't sharing more, and even subtle threats about her duty to the family image. But Jana held the line. She proved that you don't owe your private joy to a public audience. That silence was her strength. It was the armor she wore to ensure that when her son finally took his first breath, he would do so in an environment of true privacy and genuine love. This was the quiet before the storm. And as we move into the birth story, you'll see exactly why that silence was so necessary. January 2026. The snow was thick on the ground in Lincoln, Nebraska, and inside that beautifully renovated house, the atmosphere was electric. Jana knew it was time. But unlike her sisters, who usually had a film crew and a dozen family members waiting in the wings, Jana's labor started in total intentional peace. It was just her and Steven. No cameras, no lighting crews, no Jim Bob directing the action, but the peace didn't last long. As soon as the word got out to the family group chat that Jana had been admitted to a local Nebraska hospital, the phone lines from Arkansas ignited. I'm telling you, the Labor Day drama wasn't about the contractions, it was about the control. My phone was blowing up. Jim Bob was frantic. He wasn't just calling to check on Jana's health, he was calling to find out why there wasn't a media plan in place. I heard from a very reliable source that while Jana was focusing on her breathing, her phone was vibrating off the nightstand with missed calls from the compound. They wanted to know which room she was in. They wanted to know if they could send a representative. But Stephen stood at that hospital door like a literal guard. He had strict instructions: no one enters without Jana's permission. And for the first time in her life, Jana said no to her father during the most vulnerable moment of her life. The drama reached a boiling point when a certain family member, I won't name names, but we all know who the enforcer is, tried to fly out to Nebraska last minute. They wanted to be there for the first photo, but Jana had already cleared the visitor list with the hospital staff. If your name wasn't on that paper, you weren't getting past security. Can you imagine the tension? On one side, you have a woman in the middle of a life-changing miracle, finally becoming a mother at 36. On the other side, you have a patriarch back in Arkansas realizing his power stops at the Nebraska state line. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment the Duggar empire truly fractures. Jana was laboring for her son's birth, but she was also laboring for her own independence. And every time Stephen declined another call from Arkansas, another link in those old chains finally snapped. Now, we need to talk about the moment that will go down in the history of the Duggar family as the ultimate act of defiance. When Jana was admitted to that hospital in Nebraska this January, she didn't just go there to give birth. She went there to claim her autonomy. And that meant doing something no Duggar daughter had ever dared to do. She issued a formal hospital ban against her own father. I want you to picture the scene. In the Duggar world, birth is a spectator sport. We've seen it on TLC for years. Cameras in the delivery room, Jim Bob hovering in the hallway, the big house rules being enforced even in a medical setting. But Jana, she made it very clear to the hospital administration that her room was a no-fly zone for the Arkansas leadership. The security at the hospital had a specific list. If your name wasn't on it, you weren't getting past the elevator. And for the first time in his life, Jim Bob Duggar found himself on the outside looking in. I heard that when he realized he wasn't welcome in that delivery room or even in the waiting area, the reaction back at the compound was pure chaos. He wasn't just hurt as a grandfather, he was insulted as a patriarch. Jana's reason was simple, and she shared this with me in a moment of raw honesty. Amy, I wanted my son's first memory of this world to be peace, not pressure. She knew that if Jim Bob was there, it would be about the next generation of the brand, not about the miracle of her first child. She wanted to look into her son's eyes without feeling the weight of the Tonatown expectations. Stephen stood by her every second. He was the one who made sure the nurses knew that family didn't mean everyone with the Duggar last name. This ban wasn't out of malice. It was out of necessity. It was Jana's way of saying, my body, my baby, my rules. As the hours passed and the world waited for news, the silence from the hospital was deafening to those back in Arkansas. Jim Bob was used to being the first one to hold the baby, the first one to announce the name, the first one to post the photo. But in Nebraska, he was just a stranger at the gate. This segment is the turning point, guys. This is where the Cinderella finally took off the glass slippers and put on her combat boots. She protected her birth space. She protected her peace. And most importantly, she protected her child from the cycle of control. You guys, I can barely talk about this without getting choked up. After 36 years of waiting, after raising everyone else's children, Jana finally heard the first cry of her own son. In that quiet hospital room in Nebraska, away from the prying eyes of the Arkansas media machine, a miracle happened. Jana is a mom. I'll never forget the first photo that hit the family group chat, the one that the public didn't see for hours. It was a raw, unfiltered shot. Jana was sitting up in bed, her hair a bit messy, no makeup, just pure, radiant exhaustion. And there he was, a beautiful baby boy with a full head of dark hair, wrapped in a simple blue and white striped hospital blanket. He looked so much like Stephen, but he has Jana's nose. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen because for once it wasn't a staged TLC moment. It was real. But then, as always happens with this family, the leaks started. Someone, and we're still trying to figure out who snapped a grainy photo of Stephen carrying the car seat out of the hospital and leaked it to a fan site. That image went viral in seconds. People were zooming in, trying to catch a glimpse of the baby's face, trying to guess the name. I can tell you this, seeing Jana hold her son for the first time, it changed her. In that first photo, the Cinderella look was gone. She didn't look like a servant anymore. She looked like a queen. She was staring down at that little boy with a look of such fierce protection. It was as if she was saying, I moved states, I broke rules, and I stood my ground just to make sure you were born in peace. The internet is calling him the Miracle Duggar, but to us, He's just Jana's boy, while the compound in Arkansas was scrambling to get a high-res photo to post on their official site. Jana was simply soaking in the smell of a newborn. She didn't post for a long time. She didn't care about the likes or the engagement. She just wanted to be present for his first breath. This segment is for everyone who ever doubted that Jana would get her happy ending. She didn't just get a baby, she got a new beginning. And those first photos, they aren't just pictures of a child, they are receipts of a woman's freedom. But as beautiful as the birth was, the silence from Jim Bob back in Arkansas was starting to feel very, very heavy. You guys, this is where the story gets really personal. While Jim Bob was busy issuing mandates from Arkansas, Michelle did something that shocked us all. She went rogue. My sources tell me that Michelle secretly flew to Nebraska, not as a representative of the family of Brand, but as a mother and a grandmother. She spent hours in that house, holding Jana's baby boy away from the cameras and the control. I saw a glimpse of her in one of the private photos, and she looked lighter, happier. It was a secret act of defiance that showed even the strongest walls of the compound have cracks. For those few days, it wasn't about the 19 kids. It was just about her first-born daughter and a new life. But don't think for a second that Jim Bob took this sitting down. When he realized Jana wasn't coming back and wasn't giving him the exclusive rights to her baby's story, the legal talk started. There were whispers of contracts, of family obligations signed years ago for the show. He tried to use the only tool he has left, control through paper. But Jana and Steven have their own team now. They aren't scared of the old threats anymore. This was a battle of the ledgers, and for the first time, Jim Bob's signatures didn't carry any weight in the state of Nebraska. Behind the scenes, Jill and I were working overtime. We were the lookouts. We made sure Jana knew exactly what was being said in Arkansas so she could stay one step ahead. We've been through the fire, and we weren't going to let Jana get burned while she was healing from childbirth. Every time a new plan was hatched at the big house to reclaim the narrative, we made sure the walls in Nebraska grew an inch higher. We are more than cousins and sisters. We are a shield. Let's talk about the money. People always ask, how is Jana surviving without the TLC paycheck? Well, she's been smart. Between her YouTube success, her home renovations, and some very savvy investments Steven has made, they are sitting on a future that is completely independent. There are rumors of a trust fund for the baby that Jim Bob can't touch. Jana is ensuring her son will never have to sell his soul for a camera crew. She's building a multi-million-dollar legacy that is based on hard work, not reality TV drama. The group chat is where the real war is happening. It's divided. You have the lowlists who still report everything back to Jim Bob. And then you have the silent rebels who are privately messaging Jana, asking for advice on how to leave. The tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Some of the brothers are actually standing up for Jana, telling Jim Bob to let it go. The house of cards isn't just shaking, it's starting to fold from the inside. If you saw Jana today, you wouldn't recognize the girl from 10 years ago. The Cinderella look is gone. She's wearing pants. She's styling her hair how she wants. And she speaks with a confidence that is absolutely radiant. She's no longer the one cleaning up everyone else's mess. She is the queen of her own home. This transformation isn't just physical, it's spiritual. She's found a version of faith that isn't about rules, but about freedom and love for her husband and son. Can we give a hand to Stephen? This man is a rock. He didn't just marry Jana, he stepped into a lion's den and walked out with her. He has been her protector, her gatekeeper, and her biggest fan. When the pressure from Arkansas got too much, Stephen was the one who changed the locks and blocked the numbers. He is showing Jana what it means to be led by a man who respects her autonomy. He isn't a Duggar son in law. He is the head of the Wissmann household, and he's made it clear that Nebraska is sovereign ground. Jana has a new set of rules now. Rule 1, no cameras in the nursery. Rule 2, no unauthorized visitors. Rule 3, her son's life will be private. She's drafting a new manifesto for how a Duggar can live in the real world. She's proving that you can have a large, loving family without the toxic control. She's documenting her life on her own terms on YouTube, sharing what she wants to share when she wants to share it. The power has completely shifted. So, where does this leave the Duggar empire? With Jana gone, the heart of the compound is missing. The younger kids see her freedom and they want it too. 2026 is the year the world realized the Duggars are no longer a united front. Jana's baby boy represents a new generation, one that will grow up knowing the truth. As for Jim Bob, he's left with an empty house and a fading legacy. The era of control is over. The era of freedom has begun. And I, for one, am here for every single minute of it.